All right. So let's just do this. Let's do import act. I'll do this as a functional component. Switch this permanently. Okay. Okay. So we can just kind of start this from scratch. Maybe you do a little refactoring. Go to my app.js. I'm just going to comment this out. All right. So I'm going to take these options. Now you're going to have to use yours because you're going to have probably a different key. Probably don't want to share this key just mainly because it's limiting how much we can do it, and then at 10 people using it might start throttling me. Throw this inside of here. Now, if this was a little more, like I wanted to be a little more secure with this, one way I could do this is, I could come in and create like a new folder, environment. And maybe do like inside of here, do like a keys.js, or maybe there's some like, let's just actually rename this to env.js. Maybe there's like some keys I want to hide. I'm just these names aren't really important, but I could take this key. Let's just take this whole key value pair. Could do something like this. Capitalize this whole thing. And this could be something like, maybe like I'm going to put all these like secure environment variables in my git ignore, so I could go ahead and ignore that. So that's in my source, my environment. That's just environment.js. Should be ignoring that. Yeah, so that's no longer in my Git. If I wanted to just, have that in here, but I wanted to ignore it, I can do that. And then in my COVID, so this is just a variable. And then in my COVID, I could just use that variable here. That's spelling, so it's not. I'm not really concerned about like this API key, like someone taking that. It's just, all that's going to do is just going to limit my requests that I can do on Rapid API. But, if this was a real world project, you definitely want to probably, throw that into a variable and, yeah, not throw that up to GitHub. Cool. Sweet. So let's keep going. So with this chart demo, if we look here, we have a component did mount where we do our Axios calls. So I'm just gonna copy this part. We'll kind of maybe look at it again. So since this is a functional component, we're going to use the use effect. Let's grab some use state hook as well. We'll just call this get COVID data. COVID data. This is going to be a sync. We'll do this in a try catch. Stop log error here. And just something a little different I'm going to do here. I'm just going to like have this once again, this like because this was by country, so I'm going to say country data. Or I could maybe call this like original data, but country data is good. All right. And we'll just do a console.log. Reds. All right. So let's start this up. Axios is not defined. I need to import Axios. Okay, so there's my response. there's my res. So I have in that response, I have res.data, and in the data, I have res.data.response. So there's all my countries. So, and this was the call we did yesterday, but let's kind of go through and do some more stuff with this. And we don't necessarily even have to do any charting stuff, but we have a lot of data to work with here. So, so the first thing I want to do is when I set my country data, I don't want to do that as response. I want to do that as, well, res.data.response, because that's just how this API is giving me back that data. Cool. All right, and then from here, maybe we can do some, maybe we'll have some like button clicks. So we'll do like an H1. So let's look at this data. One thing that we could do, and I kind of want to do this in two different ways, just with how the data is coming back. Well, actually, let's do this. Okay, so if you notice, let's say I want to maybe organize this data by continent. So here's my country data. Let's first go through and try to pull out all of the unique continents. So let me Slack this out. And like I said, I think actually yesterday I Slacked out the code with my key, and that's fine if you're using that. We probably won't hit the limit, but you can use you can just replace your key there if you have it. Okay. So let's do this. Let's do unique continents. Let's build continents. So here I'm going to let's do this COVID data. Make it a little cleaner, so maybe like an H4. Let's actually write, I'm going to do a simple component to wrap all these sections. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a component that does this. So let's come in, new file, in just my source. Let's just call this like a wrapper or like a container. I just want to make a container component. Or let's just do it as a, let's call this a card.js. Let's import React. Yeah. So I'm kind of expecting this for now to get a title, and I'm going to do the render the children, because this is just really a container. We can share some styles. So for this, I'm just going to return a div. For now, let's just keep the style simple. We can do some stuff with this later, but we can have a margin 20 pixels, padding 20 pixels. And just to see it, let's just give it a border, 1 pixel solid. And then inside of here, we can have our title. We could call that a header. like another div where we render the children. So now I'm just gonna have this like little custom made card component that I can just render right here. I can do my card, give it a title. So this one would be like, you know, continents. And then inside of here, I can do like a render continents function. Let's just see if this is working. So for now, this is just going to render like a simple, I mean, I could do like a paragraph. Just kind of want to show you what this looks like. And, you know, we could do multiple cards eventually, because this is kind of the point of that card component, reuse it. Card is not defined. I need to import it. So there's kind of like my two card components, just giving me a border and some margin and some padding. You know, we could definitely come in and clean this up a little. Cool. So now that we have this set up, now we can start kind of working on this. So now something I'm going to say, like our country data, we're going to never change this. We always want to have, this is the thing we first get from our API call. So let's leave this country data unchanged, so we could do multiple things with it. So we don't have to keep on doing API calls. So for instance, if I want to get continents, you know, I'm just going to use this country data and go through and find all the unique continents. So right here, go through country data and find unique continents. It's kind of going to be doing some brain teasers. We can do this one together. Any ideas or any methods, any things that are coming to mind with this one?
This is kind of a cheater method, but I noticed yesterday that when they have it for continent and they just call the country the continent. So you could just do a map over and then where continent equals country.
Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, if you notice that, so you're saying if it said if the country was continent.
Yeah, I noticed yesterday in some of the stuff we put out that like there would be one that had the country as North America.
So okay, okay. So if
America.
the country was North America, like how would you know? I guess I mean we could kind of like say that way we would kind of have to go make like a list of like continents, right?
Well, you just basically limit your data. So you just do a map over and then where or you could just do filter to where continent equals country, because they had the same name for both.
Oh, so North America, the continent would be North America, and then the country would be North America.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's look at that way. And yeah, we could maybe try to do this in a couple different ways. So let's do that one, which yeah, might be, it's not cheating, it's just it might be, it's kind of unique to that data, but let's see if we can make that work. So let's do this. Let's create, let's just go through it. Let's do country data. I'm just going to set a variable called X so we can log it. Let X equal, I should not, maybe not be lazy and just call that continents. Let continents equal country data dot filter. So we're going to go through each piece of each country. And so we're going to keep it if the country key or field equals the continent field. Is that what you were saying? Continent equals country.
Yeah.
Cool. Which is maybe, yeah, a little bit, it just kind of works because they're already giving us back that data. So then I could log the continents. I'm just gonna have this return. Oh, I don't need to say return all. COVID line 33. All right, that is coming back as an empty array. Oh, let's.
So looking at the data, are there any that have country and continent at the same in this data?
Yeah, I just found it like if you go to like because it's split into 3 arrays, and if you went to the third one, there was like Africa and Africa.
Third array. Do you have like a?
I'm seeing North America, USA, Europe, Russia. I don't see any that match though.
I know there. Yeah, I'm not. Do you know? Is there a number on there? These are probably the same order. Michael, can you like see like the number of which one are matching?
Yeah, I gotta reload my page real quick. Hang on.
Because I know from yesterday, like I do remember like we were getting a country back as like all, and it was giving back all the data. So I want to be surprised if it is there. Let's do Command F. Oh yeah, right here. North America, North America. All right. So yeah, that should be matching where the continents, because those are the same right here. Continents, North America, countries, North America. Continent, did I spell anything wrong? Oh, I spelled continent wrong. There we go. There we go, and there's our 7. So that could be one way to pull all the unique, because now we get all the unique continents. Where's the US? South America. But you know, maybe some of this data is a weird looking because like South America, I'm like seeing the test million population, like the population's null. The total's null. North America, let's look at North America. That death doesn't look right for North America. I don't know, like this kind of looks like it's coming back a little weird, but I could at least this could be a way I could grab all my continents. But let's not do it this way just because it is kind of a little unique to how the data is coming back. Let's say we didn't get back these matches. What would be another way?
Could you do what we had to do for like the drop down menus where you put them into an array and then create a set method for that array? I think that was JavaScript.
Yeah, that would be another way. So we could do, let's do this like I'm just gonna call this X. So we go through each country data and we map.
Yeah.
And then we just return the C.continent. So this right here, right, this returns, this is going to return an array of strings of just all my continents. So I could take that array of strings of all my continents and say, hey, grab all the unique strings from that array. And then I could take my set and spread out over it into an array. Let's see if that does it. I am getting a null value because it looks like maybe one of the yeah, which I guess there's a continent. There must be one that has like a null value, but I could filter that out. So I have Europe, Oceania, Asia, Africa, North America, South America, and this null and all value. Cool. So that's one way, but this is just getting back an array of strings, and that's fine. So let's maybe just go through this now and return continents.map and just, you know, maybe give us a little JSX. Or for maybe for these, we can just do something like this. We can do like a JSON.stringify. So we can see what our data looks like. Oh, I need to actually, let's create some state for this. Actually, no, let's return this. Return JSON.stringify. Cool. So there's some of our continents data. Let's do a little more, I'm going to say return contents with data. Okay. So that's one way, like, we could pull all the unique continents, all the unique continent values. And right now I'm not concerned that we're getting null and all. Those are actual values that we're getting sent back. So that's fine for now. But that's just giving us back an array of strings. Let's look at something. If we go back to our data, let's say maybe we want to go through all the continents, and let's say we don't have like the North America and like South America continents match. I don't think it would work anyway because they don't have things like the population. So let's say what I want to do next, I want to grab all the continents. So I want to take, let me say it this way. I want to go through all this data, create those unique continents, but then I want to get the population of the continent. And like I said, that like, where was I think it was it 188? Or I don't, maybe this is not coming back in order, but when I did look at North America, where it was the country was North America and the continent was North America, the population was null. So like I couldn't use that little trick because that piece of data did not have the population. So now let's try to do this. Let's try to go through this data, create in an array that has the continent, and it should be unique. There should only be one continent in, like Europe should only be in there once, but then it should have the population, like the total. So like what I need to do is I need to, and when I find Europe, I need to start summing up that population. So there's definitely a lot of different ways we could do this. So and continents, I'm spelling this so wrong. Continents. One thing that we could do is, let's just call this method continent population. So I could do it this way where I go grab all the unique continents and then I go through each of the and then I could use this array to map over, like to loop over this array and then keep looping over the other arrays. That would be one way. Let's look at the reduce though. Just to kind of think about this differently. And because reduce can be like, especially for something like this, reduce is probably the method you want to use. Or it kind of really matches this use case is what I should say. So let's talk about what reduce does. All right. So reduce, if I look at this definition, I give it the callback function, which takes two arguments: the previous value, that can be any type of data, and the current value. The current value is like the current thing I'm iterating over. The previous thing, the previous value is what the function just returned from the last call. But the function I just give this. So let me just, like, let's say X, Y, and like this function just always returns 1. So when I first run this function, and another thing I can do this is I can give this a second argument, which is the starting value. So when I run reduce, X at the first time is going to be 0, because that's what I'm saying. Hey, X be 0, because that's what I'm saying there. Y is going to be the current country piece of data that I'm looking at. So that's the first time this runs. X would be 0 and Y would be the first thing in the country data array. Now this function's kind of silly, it just returns 1. But so as we go to the next item in country data, X is going to be 1. It's going to be the return value of this function. And then Y is going to be the second thing in the country data. Then we go to the next item, X is still going to be 1 because this function always returns 1, and then Y is going to be the third thing. So I want this to return an array of data, that has my continent and it has the population. So let's maybe just go through first and see if we can, like, using the reduce function, grab all the unique continents. All right. So let's do this. Let's just have this by default. My X is going to be an empty array. And maybe instead of calling this, I don't want to call that X, maybe I could just call this continents, because really that's what this is going to be. It's going to be my array of continents. And then Y is going to be my country. Let me show you this. Let's just do continents push country. This is a little bit of a trick question. So, and then what reduce returns is reduce is going to return the final value of this first argument. You'll sometimes see this like be called the accumulator, because it's like it's where you're accumulating this value. And once the reduces function is going to return that. So if I console.log X right here, any guesses of what this is going to be? And there's something tricky going, like this is definitely a trick question right here. Let's go ahead and look at it. I'm also going to do a console.log so we can tell where we're at. Fresh. Oh, I don't know if I ever called this function. Cannot read undefined method. Cannot read properties undefined reading push. Let me do this. Let me show you this console.log. Continents. Reduce takes a second to understand, but hopefully by going through this kind of like error by error, we can kind of see how this is working. So I'm going to put a log here where I'm logging like, what the hell is this variable here that I'm calling continents? Like, why is it undefined? Let's clear this. Run it. So I log it once, line 40, continents is this empty array. And then the next time I go through this function, it's undefined. So let's go through this. The first time I go through my reduce, continents is defined because I'm saying, hey, the initial state of continents is going to be this, or the initial value is going to be this empty array. So that's why when it logs continents, it logs that empty array. And then I push on this value country.country. And then with how the reduce function works is what this function returns, it's going to be the new value of continents. But this, and what I mean, the function is the function I'm highlighting currently. Does that function return anything? It doesn't return anything.
No.
There's no return. So the next value of continents is going to be undefined. So if I what I actually need to do is I need to return continents. And now see, as I go through it, each time I go through the array or through this reduce function, I'm pushing on the, I guess I'm technically pushing on the country, but I'm pushing on the country each time. And then I return that function returns that value, which then becomes that new value. So, and let's switch this to country.continents. I spelled that wrong, continents. Continent. Am I still spelling that wrong? Country.content. Yes, I am. Continent. Cool. So each time I go through, I'm pushing it, like I'm pushing that continent onto the array. So what I could do is I could do something like this. If like, I could do a check. If continents there's a include. There's an include method in JavaScript, right? I forget. 3.include one includes. I spelled includes wrong. It's includes. So I can use includes with a primitive type, like a string or a number. So what I could do here is I could see, hey, does the continents includes, does it include this thing I'm looking at? I actually just want to negate this. If it does not equal that, I want to push it on. Just going to clear this console. Let's refresh. If continents, why is that pushing it on? Okay. Let's log this country dot continents. What did I spell wrong here? Why is that null? Dude, continent is like not looking like a word.
It was only null for some of them, though.
Oh wait, maybe I didn't. It's working now. Why is that? Wait, if I put that log there, is it like? Okay, no, it's working. That's what I wanted. I think I just didn't save it. Cool. Because now I have now using the reduce, I've created an array of, you know, the continents. Cool. The nice thing about reduce is like you can determine the type of data you get back. Like I don't like want an array of strings. I want an array of, you know, objects, because what I'm slowly starting to do is that, you know, I want this to be the continent. So I'm going to make this array of hashes. Now I can't use the include method for if, because now let me just show you what I'm doing. I'm going to get rid of this if statement, because now I'm changing how this is coming back. Now, instead of an array of strings, I have an array of objects. But I kind of still want to do that same thing where I want to see, you know, where the index is, or like if it contains it. So, but now this is an object. I need to do this differently. I'm going to say index. I'm going to declare this index variable. And I'm going to go through my continents. And instead of using the include, I'm going to use the find index method. So this one is I can go through each of my continent data. Let's call that C. Say C dot continent. Does it equal the current country continent that I'm looking at? So with the find index method, if it finds the index, it will give me back that index. If it doesn't find that thing in the array, it's going to return -1. So I could do something like this. If index, you know, equals -1, that means it's not in the array. I can go ahead and push it. So it's very similar to what I was doing with the includes method, but includes only works on like numbers and strings. Now my array of continents is this array of hashes. So now I have the array of hashes that have those unique continents.
Is that just a thing of reduce to return -1?
No, the -1 is the find index method. So the
So
find,
if it's not there, then the index is -1.
yeah.
Okay.
There's also just so there's the find index and there's the find method. Find will, if it finds the object in the array and it's the first thing it finds, it will return that first thing. If it doesn't find it, it returns null. So find index is similar, where it just returns the index of the thing. And there's a reason I want to find the index, because here's what I'm going to do. Because now that I'm getting my unique continents, now I can also grab the population. Country dot population. We're getting closer, so that's why I turned that into an object, is because I want more than just the country data. I want the population. Now, that's not actually the population of North America, obviously, because it's just the population of that first country. But what I can do, so here's the case, country is not in my accumulator, which I'm calling continents. So I'm just going to push that continent and then that country's population in there. But if I hit the else statement, if index is not -1, then I know it's in my list, in my array. And what I can do is I can find that continent, and I can grab that population, and I can go ahead and add that current, country's population to that. Refresh. And there we go. I don't know if that sounds right. What number is that? That does not sound right, does it? North America. I mean, it's a bigger number, but does that sound right? 500 million people. Actually, that sounds right, or close to. Population of North America. 579. That's what this is saying. We're getting. Okay, yeah, that's close. Cool. So there's kind of that continent data. So I have my population, I have Asia, Europe, South America, Africa, all. So, this all in null. I could probably just get rid of those later. But now I'm kind of just creating this array. So there's other data, like if I wanted to grab other data from here. Now that I kind of figured out how to combine this by continent, it really wouldn't be hard to grab like the cases per continent. Like, so I could do cases dot active, or I could start adding up all like the active cases, or do they have like a total? Let's just go ahead and do active cases. So I could just, add that here, active. That would be something like this, cases, or sorry, I could grab the country. And this would, it's kind of the same logic with the population. That first one, I'll just add that to the object. If it is in it, then I can just once again grab just gonna copy this. Grab my continents that I'm kind of keeping track of. Now I have this active key, and I'll just plus equal the cases active. And then, we could get like, so now that I've done that, now that I have this X, maybe I want to go through, let's just call this, I don't know, data. Maybe now I want to go through my data. I want to map over it because now I have the population, I have the total population and I have the active. But maybe with this, I want to also go add just a percentage key. So good data.map, go through each piece of data. Let's just copy it because I want to keep all the values. And since I'm doing this, I need to return. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the data, but I want to add one key, which is like I don't know, percent active, which would just be the d dot active divided by d dot population. Let's do this. Let's set this equal to let x. Cool. So now, because these numbers like active cases, like whatever that number is, that really doesn't, I don't know, in my mind, that doesn't mean much. But like if you show me like a percentage of like, percent active, then, you can kind of start to see, oh, like North America, the 7%. We can maybe like make this look a little more friendly by timesing it by 100. So now you have like a little more meaningful numbers than just like how many active cases you have. So in North America, that's 7.5%. So yeah, this is kind of like the fun stuff you can do with like this really rich data. You can get back all of this data and, we went through and we kind of figured out by continent what is the percent of active COVID cases. So maybe now I should, yeah, instead of render continent, maybe I should render, change that name to percent active. And then for this, if I wanted to like actually show that, maybe later we can make it look a little more pretty. I could just return JSON.stringify X variable. Or I could call this like percent active data. And yeah, here I also might want to, before I map over this, I could do like a filter. And just go ahead and, d dot continent not equal null. Well, I don't, okay. Do I need to do this check? This is a little nitpicky, but do I need to check to see if d dot continent does not equal null? This is kind of, I don't need that check because remember d dot continent, if it's null, that's considered a false C value. So I don't need to check to see if that's null because just saying this will check to see if that's null. And then I also want to check if the continent does not equal. I want to get rid of those two values. Or, I could do that up here, but let's just see if that's working. If that gets rid of that null value and the all value. Looks like that's, or this is where I want an or. Damn it. Dude, I am struggling with this logic. So I want to remove the ones where we don't have a continent, where that's null, or the continent equals all. That's the one, equals all. Gosh. What am I doing wrong here? Just getting this mixed up in my head. So keep it if it has a continent or the continent not equal. Oh, but is that covenant? That's going to get my null. All right, you know what? I'm struggling with these like stupid Boolean logics lately. Let's do it right.
Mine worked with your original where you had the and, so filter d equals d dot continent and is not all.
Is that it? That's giving back nothing. Why is that giving back nothing? If like, let's just say the continent is the US or continents like North America. So we have a continent and it's not all. Why is that not returning that? That sounds right. Like if we have null, this would be null and dude, this is why is this so confusing to me? This
That's the same logic I have and mine's working.
is it? Did I spell something wrong? Parentheses. I don't know. Yeah, that should do it because like if I have null, that would be false, so it wouldn't keep it. If I had all, that would also be false, so it wouldn't keep it. But if it was like North America, then that would be true, so it should keep it. Continent. All right. Oh, god damn it. Okay. I see it now. All right. When I pushed right here, when I push on right here, this initial thing, I spelled continent wrong. Goddamn spelling error. So it didn't match, so it was not there. Okay, now fixing that. Yeah, this is just screwing up everything, so I need to fix that. Yay, there we go. Sorry, I know you know this about me, but I'm like the worst at spelling, so that one kind of bit me in the butt. Something that I like, I don't know if you have this, a good extension, I haven't added this, there is like spell check. That can be a good extension to have because that probably would have, this one, like, I don't know, it's a little, kind of works a little weird sometimes, but yeah, it might have gone through and like let me know, hey, you spelled continent wrong, which would have probably helped me find that bug. Country. Spell continents so wrong so many times. Okay. So that can be a useful little package to, you know, catch spelling errors, because spelling errors can kind of bite you in the butt like that if you're spelling things differently. So cool. Does the reduce function, kind of going through that, does that make a little more sense? The reduce functions, yeah, really powerful one, because the reduce function, you can return anything. Like with map and filter and, you know, like the other ones, you're kind of limited in what you can return. Like filter is always going to return in an array. Map is always going to return in an array. Find is always going to return the type of object that is in that array. But with reduce, I could have this return in an array. I could have this return a number. I could just have this go through and like sum the total population. What time is it? Let's do that really quick and then we'll take a break just to do another example with reduce. So let's try to grab the world population. Under world population. This one const under world population. Just do another example of the reduce. And what I mean by it can return any type of data. So I'm just going to take this. Actually, let me just type this out. Okay. So what I'm going to do is have this function. I'm just going to have this directly return this reduce. So we'll go through our country data dot reduce. So we give it the function. The first thing in this function is going to be like the previous return value. And this is like the current thing. And then as a second argument, we can give it a starting value. So since I'm trying to get the total population, I'm going to start this off as 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the previous return value and I'm going to add the current thing dot, how do I get the population from that? I'm kind of naming these variables weird just to kind of get you thinking about what it's actually doing. So the current thing is like the thing we're iterating over. So that has a population key. So let's plus equal the population and return. Let's do this, say new population, or let new, let's just call this return value. So I'm going through my reduce function. I'm starting this previous return value at 0. Then I'm going to go through each of my country data and and I'm calling it current thing. That's a bad name for it, but it works. Each of these current things has that population on it. It's that population for that country. So what I'm going to do to it, I'm going to add to the previous return value, I'm going to add that population. I'm going to store that to a new value called return value. And then on the next call, that's going to be the previous return value. There we go, world population. Does that look about 7 billion? Is that right? Is that 7 billion? Yeah. So that's how I could go through all of the countries using the reduce function and go through all those objects and add, just kind of accumulate the population. Let me slack this out so you have this. Yeah, let's take a break let's kind of keep working on this as we get back, but let's just come back at 12 o'clock. Any questions though on any of this? Sweet. All right. Let's just do some more examples, just kind of working with this data set. Because this is, I think this is something you can, especially if you do front end stuff, this can be the type of stuff you do where you get back all this data and then you kind of want to, kind of manipulate it. So far we've done things like grab a list of the continents. We've grabbed a list of the continents and then summed up populations and active cases. And using that, we figured out the percent active by continent. Also done something like finding out the world population. Let's do like some like sorting and searching types things. So going back to our data, here's what our data looks like. Let's do a sort by, we did this yesterday, but let's just kind of review it. Let's do a sort. Let's sort our countries by population. So let's go through, create an array of objects that just has the country and population, but it's also coming back sorted by population. So let's do country population. Let's call that. It's the render country population. Let's call that CP. Let's store this to a variable. Population. So we'll go through our country data. So this one, I'm just going to map over it. First thing I just want to do is just, return the c.country and c.population, just to, get rid of that other stuff. And we can do like a return JSON dot stringify country population. Just do a quick little check, see if that's working. Let's see, line 68, expected assignment or function call. Oh, so I tried to do this in one line, but I'm trying to return an object, but now it thinks this is a function. So, or it's using curly brackets. So now I have to say return country population. Oh, and then also say that's the country. This is the population key. So there's my data. It's just got my country and my population. But if I want to sort this by population, I could then at the end of this, I could call my sort function. Remember that takes I can take the two objects and tell it how I want to sort it. If it returns -1, then I think B is less than A. If it's 0, they're equal. If it's greater than 1, then A is greater than B. So I do something like this, like B dot. And since population is a number, I can just subtract it. So now it's sorted by population. So, you know, China, India, US, Indonesia. Cool. So that's a way I could take that data and get all the countries' populations. But let's say, let's do this country population. How do I want to sort. Let's say I want to still do the country population, but instead of sorting by population, I want to sort by country. This is going to be a very similar function. Actually, let me clean this up a little. So these are on new lines. Okay. So if your thing you're trying to sort by is a number, you can use this little trick of you know, subtracting the number, but you know, I can't subtract a string, right? At least I don't think. I think in Ruby you can, but in JavaScript, you know, how do I sort stuff alphabetically in JavaScript? Does anyone know?
The array sort method.
Array sort. Okay. Yeah, so if I have an array of strings, or well, yeah, that's what I'm using, the sort method. But how would I sort strings? I guess is my question. How do I do this with strings? Because well, and it is the sort method. So population's a number, but now if I'm trying to sort by something like a string, like the country, I can't just subtract. So I guess my question is, how do I compare, like in JavaScript, how do I know that A comes before B? Or that like China comes before like India in alphabetical order?
Is it the character's ASCII value?
Yeah, we can look at the ASCII value. Should just be able to do like, is China less than India? I can also just do a little shortcut by doing India. That's true, but let's also talk about, yeah, the ASCII values. So I can do, I can grab a string and I can do the char code at. So the char code at, I can give it a index. So you can treat strings. So let's say I have a string. You can kind of think of these as arrays. Even though C, notice you can do that. So I can have a string and I can access the second index, which is the S. Because for most languages behind the scenes, strings are probably just going to be treated as an array of characters. But in computer land, what this really is there's going to be like, yeah, an ASCII code to this. So I can do the char code at method. So that's how I could grab the number. If you ever want to like get a numerical value for a character, I could do the char code at. But there is a nice little with strings. I can say like, hey, is A greater than B? Like, is the string A greater than the string B? That's false. So it's kind of like A is less than B. So by using this logic, this is going to return true or false if AB, if I say less than, like this is saying AB comes before AC, that is true. Cool. So let's kind of apply this logic to the sort function. So remember, the sort function needs to return -1, 0, something less than 1 or less 0 or something greater than 1. So what I can do with something like a string in a sort is I can do something like this. I can say, hey, does the a dot country, is that less than b dot country? If so, I can return -1. I can do another check if my a dot country, I could do an equal. Are those equal? Because if I'm thinking alphabetically, these are like, that would be two strings are the same. That means they're equal. So this is my return 0 case. Then else I don't need to do a check. I can just say return 1. So this would be B is less than A. So even though I'm comparing strings and even though I'm using a comparison that returns true or false, well, if this returns true, then because my sort function, it needs to return a number because it's going to use that value to say whether it's greater than or less than. So if I'm comparing something like strings, I'm going to specifically tell it how to sort it. And now when we sort, you can say country population sorted by country. We can see like Afghanistan's first, then Africa, Albania, and then at the bottom we have Zimbabwe. So we've sorted this array by country, by alphabetical order. Like if I wanted to do that in ascending order, or sorry, from like Z to A, then I'm just going to switch. Well, I could do it two ways. I could just switch this sign right here. And now it's going to go from Z to A. Cool. So that's how I could sort. So we could see like, because you could maybe think we're maybe trying like create a table or something where we could sort by population. Or maybe we could sort by country. Let's look at maybe something like country by letter.
The 0, so -1 you said means it's not
gonna go in the array, right? Because it has a negative index. And then 0, what does 0 mean?
No, no, the negative one doesn't mean it's not going to go in the index. So the sort function, so the sort is a function on arrays. And this, because think about it this way, like when we're sorting in an array of objects, there's no way JavaScript would know how to sort that, right? Because it's an array of objects, it's not going to, like JavaScript's not going to know how to sort that. But what JavaScript gives us is it gives us this function called sort, where we tell JavaScript how to sort the array. So what I'm doing here, so here's my sort function, and in the sort function, I pass it a function to tell it how to compare two objects. So, and what the sort function wants is it wants for the function I give it to return a number. So if the function that I give to the sort, like, and it's just telling it how to compare two things, A and B. And in this case, those are two countries. So if this function returns -1, then it knows A is going to be less than B. If it returns 0, it knows they're going to be equal. If it returns 1, then it's B is greater than A. So here's an example of how we could sort alphabetically. We also have another example with our sort function, how we could sort by population. So that's what's going on there. I'm just telling JavaScript how to compare two objects in the array, and then JavaScript's going to know how to like sort the whole array.
Is it like mutating those -1, 0, and 1s every time it goes through the sort in order to create some sort of grander order?
I think, okay, let's say I have an array of objects. Like, I don't know, it's just X, and X is, some value. X is it's like a string. Let's say I want to sort this array, because if I were to ask you, like, as a person, like, sort this array, what would your response be?
How?
Yeah, exactly. How? Like, how do you want me to sort this? Because I could sort it I could say, yeah, let's sort it alphabetically, or maybe I could sort it by the length of characters. So let's do that. Let's say I want to sort by length of characters. And yeah, and we can even like read the sort definition. So notice where it says in the blue, it's like the compare function. So for the sort function, we need to give it a function to compare two values. And it's also saying it needs to return a number. So it is expected to return a negative value if the first argument is less than the second argument. So if the first value, so it's this function needs to return a negative number if A is less than B. If they're equal, return 0, and a positive value if if the otherwise. So let's say we want to sort this array by the length of the character. So I give it that function. I'm giving my sort function that compare function. So like I could do like a check, like if, and I need to give it the value, like it's going to be a string, because it's A and B, or sorry, really what this is I call this A and B, but really A and B, it's just like I'm kind of saying, hey, here's these two things, A and B. How do I compare them? Well, I could do something like this. If A, does JavaScript have a length on a string? I think it does. Should A dot length. So if A dot length is less than B dot length, return -1. If they're equal, return 0. And then else, return 1. So here, here I'm just telling JavaScript, hey, sort this by the length of the string. So if I have this sign like A dot length is less than B dot length, then I believe it would sort them in like from the shortest strings to the longest strings. If I reverse this sign, then that would give me the longest strings to the shortest strings. But there's also a trick, since the length of the string is a number, I can really simplify this. And you'll see this done with numbers, is I can just take the number and subtract it, and like subtract it from B. Or I can do B dot length minus A dot length. Because really what this is returning is a number. Let me just pull up that definition again. Like that syntax dot sort.
I guess what I'm really having trouble understanding, and maybe this is just something I don't need to understand, I just need to know that JavaScript does it automatically in the sort function, is that like if you're returning a bunch of ones and -1s and zeros, how does it know if which -1 goes before the other -1? Like, are those numbers turning into something else later, or what?
No, the -1, okay, so the easiest case of this is if this function that you give it returns 0, it's just telling JavaScript those two things are equal. So if I had a sort function that just returns 0, it's not going to change anything, because in JavaScript, like when it runs the function, it's going to say, oh, these are all equal. So it's just the way like I'm telling it how to compare. And let's do something like this. Let's do like age. Something that makes sense, a little more sense. Let's say I have an age key in here. And I want to sort by age. So when JavaScript gets, when I give it this function, it's going to take like it's going to go through these. Let's just say it like subtracts 12, that first age from 24. You know, that's minus 12. So when it runs through this, it's going to be like, oh, this is returning a negative number, minus 12. So if it returns a minus number, that means A is less than B. So it's saying, hey, this one is less than B. So this should come first when I sort it. If that returns 0, it says, oh, they're the same. So I don't need to change the order. You know, if this was 0, or if this was like 2, and I did 24 minus 2. Now it's like comparing these two, do 24 minus 2, which equals 22. Since it's a positive number, JavaScript would be like, oh, I need to move this one before that one. But it's doing it because it knows when it's comparing those two, if it's positive, you know, it knows it should go on the other, like that's all it's doing. It's hard. I always get like, it's hard because yeah, we don't know how it's working behind the scenes, but it's just, we just need to give it that function that returns something less. It just needs to return a number. If it's a negative number, then it knows that A value is less than the B value. If it's 0, it knows those two values are equal. If it's positive, it knows B is less than A. And with that sort function, you can sort anything because to however you want to sort it. So I would look at these two examples with the and that's kind of why I did the string and the population, to kind of see those two different examples of that. So for example, if we look at our population one, did I screw this up? I do have one render. I think I have this in here twice. Like country population is sorted by highest to lowest population. If I switch the order of this math, instead of doing B minus A and I do A minus B, it's going to sort it. It's just going to go from the lowest population to the highest population. And it's starting with the null values. But we could see like that way China's now the lowest. So go around, yeah, mess with that, read about it. But it just is a function that returns a number and it knows how to use that number to sort it. So we have sort, we've done some reducing. Let's say another thing you might want to do, like especially if this was in a table, you might want to like maybe only show countries that start with a certain value, a certain letter. So let's do that one. Render country by country letter. So let's say this function takes in like a character, and we'll just do the starting letter. We're not going to get too complicated with this. So we can have render country by letter, and like for this one, let's just say we're going to start with, we want to grab all the countries that start with an A. So this one, we could go through, we could map our data But before, if we want to do something by like country letter, we'd first filter. So go through each of our country data. Yeah, and then we could do like a regular expression, or we could do something like, does the char equal our country? Something like that. Remember how we like looked, so c.country is a string. Our character is going to be our first character. So we could look, does this character equal the first character in that country string? So we filter it, then once we filtered out all those, so this should technically, since I passed it A, let's see if it filters out all the ones that start with A. There you go. Mongolia, and Afghanistan. So there's all of our countries that start with A. Hard to switch that to a B. There we go. So that would be by letter. But once again, so I'm not changing, and so this country data is staying the same. So I could, this is nice because then like if we added like a UI here, let's maybe do this like active letter. Set active letter. Just set that to our A. Let's try doing this as well, just using that stuff we learned about the character code and make ourselves a little A through Z selector. So if I do A dot char code at, just to get, what's this character? It's 65. And then if I do Z, we'll do capital letters. So these are going to be ordered, like B is going to be 66. So let's do a little brain teaser here where we go through, where we create a loop where we can render all the capital letters. So that starts at 65 and goes to 90. All right. So let's do a little render alphabet. Const render. So here we're going to do a for loop. I'm going to have this variable start at 65. And I'm going to go until I is less than or equal to 90, because that was my Z, right? We'll do an I++. And then we'll do a return Let's just do a span. Let's give it a little bit of space. Margin right. It's going to be 5 pixels. Now we'll just say I. Actually, what we need to do is this will eventually be letters. So I need to create in an array because we're not doing a map. And then I need to push this on here. Because usually we do a map, and a map's going to go through each of the things, push onto that array that it's creating, and then return that array. Since we're using a for loop, we need to initially create that array, go through each of the things, push it on, and then return the array. Cool. So there's those are my character codes as numbers. So we'll have to go convert those later. Let's just clean this up a little bit by let's maybe throw this in a div. All right, I forget the method from how to go from a number to character, so I can just Google that, number to JavaScript. Looks like it's the string from char code. Let's test that really quick. String from char code 65, that should be A. Sweet. So we can do string from char code I. I go back to my React app. There's my little alphabet. Cool, and then I could just throw an on click here. You do set, and actually I'm going to throw this into a variable. So I'm going to reuse it twice. So I'm going to let char equal. So I can do an on click on this span where we set the active letter. I can do a little styling. And then within the span, I can just use that char variable. Save that. B, C, D. And I can go through and I can filter out by starting letter. So yeah, we didn't spend any time making this look pretty, but I'd say that's generally some of the, you know, we could import semantic and do a table. That can sometimes be a little of the easier stuff, but I think some of the stuff that can be a little harder is, you know, you get back the data, and then with that one API call, you know, this is some of the things we've done with it. Sorting, we're like normalizing some data, we're sorting, we're filtering, we're, you know, kind of making this interactive. Because usually when you get back data, like when you're working with an API, there's not going to be separate API calls for all of this stuff. Like there's probably not going to be an API to get the world population or to get, country population. We just have that one API call that's grabbing us back all of this stuff. And then on the front end, we could do whatever we want with it. I mean, we could do a ton more stuff with this. Because there's quite a bit of information here. So let me Slack out this whole example. But yeah, any questions on this? So kind of getting, so I think we talked so much about a lot about CRUD, like as far as like working with data, but there's this whole other piece of working with data that is like we haven't done any CRUD stuff. We're just doing one API call, but there's this whole other part of making websites really functional is by manipulating that data into like interactive UIs. Cool. Yeah, I think that is it for today. Tomorrow we're going to break it up into 2 parts where we'll give you some group project time with your portfolio project, and then also we'll give you some time to start thinking about what you want to do for your hackathons. Yeah, I think I want to see maybe use one like API call, maybe do some of the stuff we've done today and yesterday, working with some data. This might also give you an idea for apps. So there's this free public APIs. So you can maybe look through some of these lists. That might give you some suggestions. We're still going to want you to have your own backend, your Rails backend, but maybe somehow you could incorporate this in your database. Like for instance, if you're doing like a movie database, maybe you could use their information, but like you could somehow store like a user could log in and they could store like liked movies, and you could store that part in your database. So anyway, cool. That is it for me. So if there's no questions, we can hop off, take lunch. Let's just come back at let's call it 1:50. And we'll get started from there.
Thank you.
Cool. Have a good lunch, everyone.